He now is able to get up. He's able to go to the temple and to worship like everybody else. He has hope and faith in God and not in some superstition. His life will never be the same because he encountered Jesus and he accepted what Jesus had to offer. He believed in Him. Immediately after this, the Jewish leaders, because a man's going to go to the temple, he's going to want to go to the place he's never been able to go to. He's going to want to go and worship God and say, "Thank you, God." Go to the place where all good Jews go to celebrate the God of all creation, the God of covenant. And so he goes there and the Jewish leaders harass him. They say, "You can't carry your mat. It's a Sabbath. You can't do that on the Sabbath." He says, "Well, all I know is this guy came along. I don't even know his name. And he told me to take up my... He asked me if I wanted to get well. I said, yes. He told me to take up my mat and walk. And I did." Later, Jesus comes to him and tells him, "Hey, I'm Jesus. And I delivered this message from my Father." He says, "Stop sinning. Go on and live fully. Live your life." So the Jewish leaders begin harassing Jesus for breaking the Sabbath rules. Breaking the Sabbath rules. Now, I honestly, I've had to struggle with, this whole idea of Jesus, when He came, He addressed some things that were very clearly written down in the Old Testament. The Sabbath is, do you know where that is listed as a law? There's 10 of them, right? The 10 Commandments given to Moses. Because you've got to honor the Sabbath and keep it holy. So many, many years have passed. And Jesus is now challenging the interpretation of what the rules are for the Sabbath. How does that work? What gives Him the right? That was the deal the Jewish leaders were wrestling with. They're looking at this guy and they're going, he's got the clothes of a FedEx agent. He's got the truck. But it just doesn't sound right. It just doesn't seem right. There's something wrong here, and they begin to reason. Your thoughts are always supported by reasons. And reasons can become strongholds in your life. You can reason yourself out of believing anything. You can reason yourself out of believing that the FedEx man is really there to deliver a legitimate package for you, if you allow yourself to go that direction. Reasoning sometimes can actually get in the way of faith. In this case, I think that Jesus is wanting them to recognize that because they have interpreted over the years stricter and stricter regulations around the Sabbath, doesn't mean that that's what God wanted. And Jesus is coming to put down a new covenant. So you got to look back at what was the Sabbath originally. Well, the Sabbath was instituted by God. It was given to Moses to the Israelites as a newly formed people, as a new community. It was one of these 10 laws, and then there were lots of other little Levitical laws that were given to them to help them begin to live their lives in a way that would unify them as people who had received covenant with the one true God. It set them apart. It helped the rest of the world look at them and go, man, these people are different. What is it that makes them different? Oh, they've got a covenant with this God they believe in. This one true God, this Creator God. And so that covenant had been formed through Moses with the Israelites. And God, the understanding was that God was a God, the one true God. The Israelites worshipped was a God who created the earth in 7 days. And on the seventh day He rested. So looking back on creation, this is a God who said He rested on the seventh day. And so we need to honor Him by resting on the seventh day. This is a God who formed a covenant with a people, and after He brought them out of slavery and into freedom. And so this God told us that we need to rest and honor Him on that seventh day. So the Sabbath is extremely important for the formation of the people of God. So many, many years have gone by, and the Sabbath has become a solid institution in Israel. And it's even become so institutionalized that it's become a religious stronghold in some senses, because they have tried to figure out what does it mean not to work? Well, I mean, even carrying a mat would be considered work. If your donkey falls down in a pit, do you have the right to get him out on the Sabbath, or do you have to wait until the next day? You know, those are the kind of questions they had wrestled with over and over and over again, and they become so legalistic that they had it all laid out. Books and books written. You can do this, but you can't do this. So that's why they were fussing at the guy about carrying his mat. Jesus steps up and He says, look, the Father has sent me to give you a very clear message. You got the heart of the law wrong. God is a God of creation. God is a God of covenant. But God is also a God of redemption, Jesus is saying. He's a God who is making all things new. He's a God who is freeing us up to be able to worship Him in spirit and in truth, not just by following legal rules and regulations. And so Jesus basically is telling them and showing us that the